On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas has a serious problem. They get spanked in Texas Tech. The road woes continue. What is wrong with this Kansas team?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. Thanks for making the Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas loses another game on the road, but this time worse than any of the others when you look at point differential, deficit, and how it went down. Kansas gets spanked from the word go in Lubbock. We're going to get to the game, what went wrong for KU, which was pretty much everything, what it means for the team. Is this just not a very good Kansas team? We'll try to come to a bit of a resolution to that coming up here. We'll get to our goats of the game, good and bad, and what's next for KU men's basketball. First, this episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app to your phone today or wherever and check it out because you can get $20 off using code Locked On. Create an account with Gametime and get that $20 off your first purchase. So Kansas loses in Lubbock to Texas Tech 79-50, a 29-point deficit for KU. They just get absolutely spanked from the word go. Here are some stats for you. These first two from Jeff Borzello. That was the fewest points scored by Bill Self in a Kansas team in a road game. So fewest points by a Bill Self Kansas team in a road game. The 29-point loss matches the program's largest loss to an unranked opponent with a 1950 game against Kentucky. Now this one, according to Rob Anderson, that is the fewest points in a conference game by Kansas since you have to go back to 1999 in February when they lost 52-50 to Iowa State. So making history here, but very much not in a good way for Kansas. And I've, throughout the different points of the year, these two things are a little bit in conflict with each other. I've thought that this team is better set up to win in the NCAA tournament than the regular season because of the lack of depth. And I think you see that without Kevin McCullough in a game like this. Flip side, though, is I've seen some comparisons, made some comparisons to that 2018 to 2019 season for Kansas, where you had an All-American big man in Jedrick Lawson, who was maybe a little bit slower on the defensive end, but, a really skilled, talented player on the offensive end. And things just didn't really totally click around them, whether it was the bench not clicking, whether it was having an inefficient player off the bench that you thought would be good, like Charlie Moore with, Nick Timberlake on Marshall Jackson. There are a lot of things that are similar there. That team ended up losing in the second round of the NCAA tournament. That team was also number one in the AP poll in the preseason. That team was also the last Kansas team to go undefeated at home in for a year. So, there are a lot of, comparisons for what you would say with that team. They go kind of counter to each other. But one of the other things that team did that this one did is go in Lubbock and just get boat raced. That Texas Tech team beat Kansas 91-62, 29-point deficit. This was a 29-point deficit for KU. I don't know that you can really have a positive coming away from this game. They shot 49%. You shot 33%. They were 10 of 26 from three. And yes, maybe again, this goes back to the three-point defense conversation versus luck. You did give up a lot of open ones, maybe more so in this one than some other ones. So I would tend to lean to that. But still, you're going to play teams that this happens to. You go 3 of 16 from three. So you see the discrepancy in three-point shooting, comes to it a little bit more in each and every game. You had one more turnover than them with 8 less points off turnovers. You had 16 less rebounds against what coming in was a Texas Tech team that has been a bad rebounding team. Texas Tech came into this game 14th in Big 12 only games in defensive rebounding rate and 11th or 10th in offensive rebounding rate in Big 12 only games. So they were a bottom 5 rebounding team in the Big 12, no matter which metric you look at. You get out rebounded pretty hard. Now, some of the total rebounds, different because you missed more shots than them. Still, the rebounding rate was still not good for you. And I think part of this was effort. I don't know. I think a big part of it was effort, honestly. And I think you didn't just see that in the rebounds. There were a couple 50-50 balls, loose balls the KU just didn't really get to. There was the one that really comes to mind for me. It was toward the end of the first half, and Tech either missed a shot or kind of threw it away, and the ball was like available under the hoop. KU had two players who were around it. One of them even being KJ Adams, who typically is like the hustle guy. Neither one like dove on the floor. Neither one really sprinted to get it. Tech ended up getting the ball, made a great play where they did show the hustle to get to the ball, saved it from going out of bounds, and it led to like a wide open layup or dunk. You didn't get effort, and I get it with the shorter bench. Maybe that can hurt a little bit of how much energy you can exhaust into a game. But that's something that, like, I don't know, that's kind of a non-negotiable, right? Like if they're just beating you because they're hitting a billion threes, that's one thing, right? Like, sure, that might not be great defense, and you might need to draw some stuff up, but can't really deal with the lack of effort stuff. You were outscored 28 to 20 points in the paint. I can't remember a game this season where KU was outscored points in the paint. They were averaging 40 points per game in the paint in conference-only games. You only had 20 of them in this game. They had more steals than you. They had 10 more bench points. It was 7-0 in second chance points. They even had 8 more assists than you. You have been a good passing team. You have been an assist basketball team. Yes, no Kevin McCullough who gets assists and makes some of the shots, but still, you should be able to do this a little bit better than you have. The last 2 games for KU are their 2 worst assist total games of the season. So everything just not good. I mean, I guess you could say, well, shot pretty well at the free throw line, shot a little bit better than them on free throws, even though they took more. You won fast break points 11-5. There were a few nice moments from Marco Jackson and Nick Timberlake. I mean, hell, if you would have said coming into this game that Marco Jackson and Nick Timberlake would combine for 20 points on 8 of 12 shooting, you might have felt like Kansas was going to find a way to win this one. But that obviously didn't happen because you only got 30 points from the rest of everyone else. So I guess outside of that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? But if you want to look at it with rose-colored glasses and say, well, considering the way the Texas Tech shot the basketball and got up on you early, considering Kevin McCullough, who is one of the front runners for Big 12 Player of the Year, was out again, which I don't know. Are we starting to get concerned at all with the long term of Kevin McCullough is going to be? And if you continue to struggle, does Kevin just say, I'm going to pack it in, go to the NBA draft? I don't think that would happen. Kevin is an unbelievable competitor. I probably shouldn't have even brought that up because I don't even want to insinuate that would type thing would happen. But like, I don't know. You start worrying about just weird things when you start losing this bad, right? But anyway, considering the way Tech shot it, considering no Kevin McCullough, considering no Jamari McDowell, which, that's less about what Jamari McDowell could have impacted because you don't know how much he would have played. But certainly in a game like this where you did get like Wilder Evers into the game in the first half, maybe he would have played a little bit more. The lack of depth for KU, playing with an injured DeJuan Harris, which I thought all things considered, DeJuan was fine. He didn't have a good shooting game, had more turnovers than you would have liked. But considering he was playing on the ankle with nobody really helping him around him, whatever. It's a little more understandable. And, to a point, like you did make your bed by not adding more depth in the offseason. I talked about this on a recent episode. You could have done that and said, hey, you know what, instead of using up all the scholarships that we needed to use up for the NCAA sanctions in 1 year, why don't we just use up, 2 of the 3 or something like that, or one of them and just do one every year, right? So you made your bet a little bit that way. But doing all that stuff, that didn't lead to lack of effort on hustle balls. That didn't lead to lack of boxing out on rebounds. That didn't lead to Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams missing every layup or KU playing with, a low effort of intensity, right? Like some of those things that you can't excuse away to be like, okay, if they would have lost in Lubbock without Kevin McCullough and the other team hit 10 threes, okay, like it happens. Tech's a pretty good team. But for it to happen the way it was, the score the way it was, and with all the things that are kind of inexcusable, even with the excuses you had, that's what makes this a little bit frustrating. And again, I've stayed adamant that I think this team is better set up for the NCAA tournament than the regular season because of that lack of depth. And that's obviously, dependent on getting guys healthy. But shoot, man, I go back to those 2018 to 2019 comps. They're right there. And for whatever reason, Kansas has just struggled every year they've been preseason number 1 under Bill Self. So going back to 2004, which was the year that Kansas was preseason number 1, this is the 4th year that Kansas has been a preseason number 1 in the AP poll. The previous 3, they have failed to make it out of the first weekend. 13 of the other 15 preseason AP number one teams, the reason it's not 16 is because the 1 year we didn't have the tournament, 13 of the 15 made the second weekend. And North Carolina last year was one of the exceptions because they just didn't make the tournament. So basically like 90% of the time, AP preseason number one is making the second weekend. Kansas, if this continues this year, might be 0 for 4. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what's going on there. And we haven't even touched on the road issues really this episode. That continues on for KU. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know why you can't figure that out. Yes, it's tough to win on the road for everyone in college basketball. But to this level, we're seeing KU is pretty tough. So I think we just saw the Chiefs win a Super Bowl in which the regular season was very subpar. And 2 weeks before the regular season ended, they lost a really bad game to the Raiders. And we saw what happened when it hit the postseason. March Madness a little bit different. You don't really have a Patrick Mahomes on this KU team, though you do have some good players. But I guess the point I would take away from that is sometimes weird things happen in the regular season and you can flip the switch. It's not good to count on that. And I think it would probably be more surprising than not surprising if they did go on a run in March. And I wouldn't be picking it, but I'm still not precluding it from my mind because I do think the roster is better built for that. And because of what we just saw with the Kansas City Chiefs, I guess. All right, we're going to get on to our GOATs of the game. This is Locked On Jayhawks. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite sporting event should not be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. You might need to go to a comedy or theater event to, rinse the taste out of your mouth on this one. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to be having. They have flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your arena. The images of the CFUs allow you to know what you're getting into when you buy them. And they have the Gametime guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Moving on with Locked On Jayhawks to our GOATs of the game, good and bad, who stood out for KU. Let's start with the good. This one will be a little bit shorter, as you would imagine. Bill Self for getting tossed and making a statement. I do think for Hunter Dickinson to have as low of a free throw rate and the amount of free throws that he gets to take every game for the amount of time he is down low, and you have players hanging on his back and, banging with him on the inside, it is lower than you would expect. And we actually had a who stat line is anyway a few weeks ago with Nick Schwert that, he was like KU's lowest free throw rate per 2-point attempt, which is very weird considering. Now, I do think obviously with Hunter, he is someone who is more of a finesse big man. So like you're not going to be the most hacked big man in the league, but certainly he's getting fouled more than would indicate with the free throw numbers. I think that's part of it, what happened there with Bill Self, and trying to make sure Hunter knows that, I have your back even in a game where you're not playing well. I think that's an important thing for a coach. You see that in baseball all the time. So yeah, I think that was a good thing for Bill Self to try to make a statement there. Johnny Furphy gets a good go. 13 points on 4 of 8 shooting, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block. I thought Furphy played a good enough game. He hit a 3 to maybe end a bit of that cold spell that he's had there. Okay, you really struggled from the outside in this game for really a couple straight games here. And it wasn't the best game in the world for Furphy, but he was okay enough. He was good enough in this one. I do think that with Furphy, he's not somebody who is creating his own shot off the dribble. He's not going to get his own shot. He's not agile enough to get by guys quick enough. He is more of a Grady Dick, I don't know, secondary type player where it's like, if you have him as a secondary, as one of your good players, you love it. But if he has to be the go-to guy, which he's kind of had to be a little bit more without Kevin McCullough here lately, it's a little bit tougher because he's not really a shot creator, right? At least yet. Like that might grow into his game if he comes back next year or, down the road or something like that. But overall, I did think he played a pretty good game. If we're judging on the low bar of like grading against the curve for what has been recently for KU and for how poorly they played in this game, you can make the argument for I guess the Timberlake Marco minutes, like I said, 20 points, 8 of 12 shooting. You would have taken that coming into the game. So if you're grading on the curve of what you expected and what you got, that's a plus. I do think Nick Timberlake struggled still defensively, led to several open threes on that end. Still a work in progress. I don't know, maybe work in progress is not the right term there, because I don't think it's really something you're expecting to get better. But the bar for Nick Timberlake playing or getting a role, getting 10, 15 minutes for KU night in, night out, making an impact, it's never going to be about the defense, because that's just never going to be the calling card. It's going to be about, can you make the shots? Because you can't compound the defense with only shooting 28% from three, which is basically what he's been doing. He went 5-7 today, 2 of 4 from three. Makes the defense more playable, especially for a team that can use the three-point shooting. So I guess Nick Timberlake offense. And then I thought Marco had some solid moments. He had the one drive in transition. He had a couple jump shots. Didn't look too comfortable taking those corner threes. Looked like he was kind of hesitating there, but I appreciated the overall game that he played. I thought he was actually okay defensively. The plus minus was minus 17, which I know sounds horrible, but like you look at what some of the KU starters did, where they were like minus 29 or minus, like Hunter Dickinson, who we're about to get to here, was minus 36. I guess that's a little bit better there. Let's get to our bad goats, though. Hunter Dickinson, that was the worst game he played in KU uniform. I don't know. That might be the worst game he's played in his college basketball career. I don't know enough about each and every game at Michigan, but he's been an unbelievable player in college basketball. 5 points, 2 of 12 shooting. He is now 3 for his last 20, because if you remember, as part of our Baylor recap, we had Hunter Dickinson first half in the good goats. We had Hunter Dickinson second half in the bad goats. He was 1 of 8 in the second half against Baylor. So he is 3 for 20 his last 3 halves of basketball. And you saw the frustration. That one drive where he missed like 3 straight layups, where he missed one, misses 2 like putback tries, 1 on like a tip. You could see the frustration. And I think that started to mount for him. I think the frustrating part for KU fans that you have this guy who was billed as being this like villain coming into KU, and that he was somebody who loved being the villain and loved the moment. And you would think that would lead to being someone who, when the going is tough on the road, you thrive in that environment. And it felt like it's been kind of the opposite of that, honestly, which is a little bit weird. So I don't know. But anyway, I expect him to get back to being good Hunter Dickinson. Like, I don't know. He's just missing, shots that he normally makes. He just needs kind of a slump buster. But 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers. He was minus 36, 3 fouls. Maybe the Bill Self thing will kind of fire him up, because especially without Kevin right now, like you're reliant on Hunter Dickinson to give you 20 points a night, right? KJ Adams, by the way, 5 points. He gets a bad goat here. 1 of 10 from the floor, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. So, I mean, you total it up in a game without Kevin McCullough, where you said, and where DeJuan Harris was playing hurt, you basically were going to say, hey, hopefully we get something from Timberlake and Marco, which you actually did. You're going to need the big guns to carry you. KJ and Hunter, you need 30 combined points, 35, 40 combined points from the two of you guys. Well, you got 10 on 3 of 22 shooting. And it's not just 3 of 22 shooting where it's like, okay, like what if it was a weird game where like, you go back to the 2018 team. What if like Devontae Graham and Malik Newman went 3 of 22 from 3 because they just could not buy a 3, right? Like that would be one thing. Still wouldn't be enjoyable, but that'd be one thing where it'd be a little bit more understandable. When you go 3 of 22 from the floor, where they're 2 big guys, where primarily most of those shots are coming from 4 feet, from bunnies, from layup opportunities, that is infuriating, and that just can't happen for KU. And the level that they're shooting layups and at the rim over these last 3 games, with this one and the last 2, is pretty astounding in a bad way. I don't know if that's just something that a reversion to the mean is coming because they've been excellent at it all year long, or if there's just something that, I don't know, the lack of depth, being more tired, maybe loss of explosiveness in the legs is leading to you not being able to finish as well. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty incredible. And you needed those guys to step, and neither one kind of did. Everything else and in between also, I guess, gets a bad goat here for KU too. Like I said, I didn't want to put DeJuan Harris on here. Not a great statistical game or performance by him, but he was playing injured. Just for him to be out there so that you didn't have to have 6 scholarship guys was a plus on its own. But yeah, everything else and kind of in between gets the bad goat here. Let's finish up here with what's next for KU men's basketball, because I think we need to turn the page. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props. I'm waiting for the updated title odds. Those will come out tomorrow morning because I'm recording this on Monday night. But Texas Tech is low-key a good Big 12 dark horse selection to possibly win the Big 12 because their schedule a little bit easier. So they're sitting at 7-4, game back at Houston. They don't have to play Houston a second time. They also don't have to play Kansas a second time. They don't go to Allen Fieldhouse, and they are on KenPom favored in all but one of their remaining games, the only one at Iowa State. I think you can probably get good odds on Tech and Iowa State to win the league. And if they just get a share of it with Houston, even though I think Houston's a better team, maybe schedule sets up a little bit better, then you win that bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. What's next for KU men's basketball? Well, the good news is they do have some time off, more time off for DeJuan to get healthy, for Kevin to get healthy, to practice, for Bill Self to rip into him, for film study, to reset, more time for it to linger with KU players of what just happened, to maybe be more hungry coming out of this. And then you're at Oklahoma on Saturday. Doesn't get much easier playing on the road. Oklahoma's got a good team. In fact, Oklahoma's ranked higher than Texas Tech on KenPom, although after this game, who knows if that'll switch up. I said coming in the week, I would almost take 1-1 coming up this week with how much KU has struggled on the road. If you told me 1-1 this week, I'd probably take it. But now that we're here after the Texas Tech blowout loss, like it makes you feel worse about the chances to do that because now you're 1-5 on the road in Big 12 play. Now you're coming off a blowout loss. Guys are hurt and not playing well and all this stuff. And even then, there still is that worry of like, is it even going to be enough to make you feel good? Because I think coming in, I was saying, okay, maybe if you go 1-1 this week, like that would be okay. And that would probably feel good in a lot of ways where you figure the one loss was probably a close loss. Would it even make you feel that much better now? I don't know. It'd make you feel a little bit better. Maybe the time off, time heals all wounds, right? And then you have a one-game week the following week where it's at home. So an opportunity to really start to work things out. But this, to me, becomes must-win. If Kansas wants to win the Big 12, you got to win this game at Oklahoma. If you lose this game at Oklahoma, I'm wrapping it up for the Big 12 title talk, and we're going to just start talking about long-term stuff with like the NCAA tournament and seeding and stuff like that. Maybe we're already there, but if you want any chance kind of riding that ship, starting to feel like you can play better and perform better in these situations, it's this Saturday in Norman at Oklahoma. All right, we're going to be joined by Nick Short later this week. We'll also get to a KU Oklahoma preview as well. This has been Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast. Give me a follow at D Johnson Radio on Twitter. See you next time with LOJ.